A millionaire patient pretends to be in a coma, but when he hears his nurse's confession, the heart monitor continued its steady rhythm as the millionaire lay motionless on the hospital bed. Everyone believed he was unconscious. Everyone believed he could hear nothing, feel nothing, and understand nothing. But they were wrong. Because behind those closed eyes, he was fully awake. And on the night that changed everything, he heard a confession from a nurse that shattered his heart more deeply than any illness ever could. Before we begin this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe kindness deserves a second chance. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. Now let's begin. Nathan Cole had everything most people spent their entire lives chasing. He was one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the country. His technology company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He owned luxury homes, expensive cars, and had his name featured in business magazines. Yet despite all his success, Nathan lived a strangely empty life. His days were filled with meetings, contracts, and endless numbers. His nights were spent alone in large silent rooms that felt more like museums than homes. The people around him admired his wealth, feared his power, or wanted something from him. Very few genuinely cared about him as a person. For years, Nathan convinced himself that money could solve every problem. Whenever life became difficult, he worked harder. Whenever loneliness appeared, he bought something new. Whenever sadness visited, he buried himself in business. But deep inside, something was slowly breaking. One rainy evening, after an exhausting week of work, Nathan collapsed in his office. The pressure, stress, and exhaustion had finally caught up with him. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered severe complications caused by years of neglecting his health. The condition was serious but treatable. However, while recovering, Nathan witnessed something that disturbed him. People who claimed to be loyal friends visited his hospital room and immediately began discussing his company. Family members he rarely heard from suddenly appeared, asking questions about inheritance and finances. Business partners expressed concern, but their eyes seemed focused on his future shares rather than his recovery. Nathan felt invisible. One night, after hearing several unpleasant conversations, an unusual idea entered his mind. What if everyone believed he was unconscious? What if he simply stayed silent and listened? The next morning, Nathan pretended his condition had worsened. He kept his eyes closed and remained perfectly still whenever anyone entered the room. Soon rumors spread that he was in a coma-like state. Doctors believed he was suffering temporary neurological complications. His visitors believed he could hear nothing. And so the truth began revealing itself. Day after day, Nathan listened. He heard relatives arguing about property they had not inherited. He heard business associates planning strategies to protect themselves if he never recovered. He heard fake friends speaking kindly while cameras were present and carelessly when they thought nobody was listening. Every conversation felt like another crack in his heart. For the first time, Nathan understood how little genuine love existed in his life. Weeks passed. Then one evening, a new nurse began working on his floor. Her name was Emily Harper. She wasn't particularly interested in his wealth or reputation. In fact, she seemed almost unaware of who he was. She simply treated him like a human being. Every night she entered quietly, adjusted his blankets, checked his medication, and spoke to him as if he could hear every word. At first Nathan assumed it was routine professionalism. But soon he realized something different. Emily cared. She talked about her day, her patients, and the small challenges she faced. She told stories about children she helped and elderly patients who needed comfort. She never expected a response. Yet somehow her voice made the room feel less lonely. Nathan found himself waiting for her shifts. During the long silent hours, her presence became the brightest part of his day. One night she arrived looking unusually tired. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. Her shoulders seemed heavy. After completing her work, she sat beside his bed for a moment and quietly stared out the window. The city lights shimmered against the darkness outside. For several minutes she said nothing. Then she began speaking softly. She admitted she was struggling. Her mother was seriously ill. Medical bills were piling up. She worked extra shifts but still couldn't afford all the treatments her family needed. Despite everything, she refused to complain to anyone. She simply carried the burden alone. Nathan listened carefully. For the first time in years, he felt genuine concern for another person. The following nights revealed even more. Emily often skipped meals to save money. She traveled long distances after work to care for her mother. She hid her worries behind a gentle smile because she didn't want patients to feel uncomfortable. Yet she never lost her compassion. No matter how exhausted she became, she treated every patient with dignity. Nathan couldn't understand it. He had millions of dollars and often felt miserable. Emily had almost nothing compared to him, yet she possessed a strength and kindness he had never seen before. Then came the night that changed everything. A violent storm pounded the city. Rain hammered against the hospital windows. The hallways were unusually quiet. Emily entered Nathan's room near midnight. She checked his monitor, adjusted his pillow, and sat beside him. At first she remained silent. Then tears slowly appeared in her eyes. Nathan had never seen her cry before. Her voice trembled as she began speaking. She confessed that she was afraid. Her mother's condition was getting worse. Doctors were running out of options. She felt helpless. She admitted she spent every day pretending to be strong because everyone depended on her. But deep inside she was terrified. Then she said something Nathan would never forget. She explained that despite all her struggles, caring for patients gave her purpose. She believed every person deserved kindness, especially when they were vulnerable. She looked toward Nathan's motionless body and softly said she hoped he could somehow hear her. Not because he was a millionaire. Not because he was important. But because nobody deserved to face suffering alone. She said she hoped that if he ever woke up, he would find people who truly loved him. And then she quietly whispered that sometimes the loneliest people were not the poor. Sometimes they were the rich people surrounded by the wrong people. Nathan felt tears forming behind his closed eyes. Nobody had ever spoken about him that way before. Nobody had ever worried about his loneliness. For years people saw his money. Emily saw his humanity. That night changed him forever. The next morning Nathan could barely continue pretending. Everything inside him wanted to sit up and tell Emily she was not alone. But he waited. He needed time to think. Over the next week, Nathan reflected on his entire life. He thought about every relationship he had neglected. Every opportunity to show kindness he had ignored. Every moment he chose business over people. Success had made him wealthy. But it had not made him wise. Finally, after nearly 2 months of pretending, Nathan made a decision. The following morning doctors entered his room for routine examinations. To their shock, Nathan slowly opened his eyes. The hospital erupted with excitement. Specialists rushed in. Tests were conducted. News spread quickly. The millionaire had awakened. Family members suddenly appeared again. Business partners rushed to visit. Everyone wanted access. Everyone wanted attention. But Nathan was no longer the same man. His priorities had changed. The first person he asked about was Emily. When she entered his room later that evening, she looked completely stunned. Nathan smiled weakly. The simple expression nearly brought tears to her eyes. Although he never revealed he had heard every conversation, he thanked her for treating him with kindness. He thanked her for speaking to him when everyone else treated him like an object. And he thanked her for reminding him what truly mattered. Emily simply smiled and said she was happy he recovered. Nothing more. No request. No expectations. No interest in his fortune. That humility convinced Nathan even further that she was special. After leaving the hospital, Nathan began transforming his life. He reduced his workload. He spent more time helping others. He created programs supporting struggling families facing medical emergencies. He funded hospitals in underserved communities. He established scholarships for nursing students. People were surprised by the dramatic change. But Nathan understood exactly why it happened. Because one nurse had shown him the value of compassion. Several months later, Nathan learned that Emily's mother required an expensive treatment. Without revealing his involvement, he arranged anonymous funding through one of his charitable foundations. The treatment gave Emily's mother another chance at life. When Emily discovered the assistance came from an anonymous donor, she cried tears of gratitude. She never knew who helped her. And Nathan preferred it that way. For once, kindness felt pure. Not a business transaction. Not a publicity event. Just kindness. As the years passed, Nathan and Emily remained connected through hospital projects and charitable work. Their friendship grew slowly and naturally. Built on trust rather than wealth. Built on respect rather than status. Built on shared values rather than convenience. Nathan discovered something remarkable. The happiness he spent decades searching for had never been hidden inside bank accounts. It lived inside meaningful relationships. It lived inside generosity. It lived inside moments when people helped one another without expecting anything in return. Eventually, Nathan shared the truth. During a quiet conversation years later, he confessed that he had heard more than anyone realized during his hospital stay. Emily listened in stunned silence. When he explained that her late-night confession had changed his life, tears filled her eyes. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Sometimes the most powerful truths require no response. Only understanding. The storm that once surrounded Nathan's life had finally passed. Not because he became richer. Not because he became more successful. But because he learned how to care. And in learning how to care, he finally learned how to live. Before this story ends, leave a comment below and tell us what lesson touched your heart the most. We would truly love to read your thoughts. As Nathan often reminded himself in later years, people may forget your wealth, your job title, and your achievements. But they never forget how you made them feel. And perhaps that is the greatest fortune anyone can leave behind. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more people who may need hope today. And before you go, tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? We'd love to know how far around the world this story has traveled. Thank you for being part of this journey, and remember, sometimes a single act of kindness can change a life forever.